What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to romasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. What's up, dudes? Just myself today. I'm sorry, I'm at the gym in the education room. Sorry for the lighting. What's going on, guys? Ray, what's up, dudes? Anybody else in the comments think? We got Gibbons here, a few other people. Francisco, what's up, dude? Lucas, what's going on? Ray, I think Saad's here as well. What's going on, guys? So if anybody wants to hop on, let me know. All good if you want to come on, share a win and so on. But I want to share a tool with you guys today that you've probably heard of, but if you haven't heard of it, it'll be a good tool for you guys to go through. I use it almost on a weekly basis. And I think, so the time management tool, I think what happens with time management is a lot of people get too religious about their methodology that they're going to use. Oh, by the way, Matt's not here today because he had an awesome freaking wedding on Friday. It was amazing. We all danced our faces off, and he is dropping off a lot of stuff today from the wedding, like the tables. I think he's taking back the extra alcohol that wasn't used or something like that. So anyway, he will also not be here on Friday too. But I want to take this time to kind of share some tools with you guys, or at least one tool with you guys that I constantly use for time management. And like I was saying before, I think what happens with time management techniques is they get turned into more of an ideology or a religion, and people think they should only use one, when in the reality is, in my opinion, you have to match the time management tool with the energy cycle you're going through, or with the situation that you have at that particular time. So for instance, there are times, most of the time, where I'm doing my 2-hour time block windows, but then sometimes I don't have 2 hours, or sometimes I just don't feel like it. So I have to use some other tools to help me, kind of get more efficient and figure out what I'm going to work on for that particular moment in time. So anyway, I want to share this with you guys. I think I know how to share my screen here. But if you guys haven't seen this, this is from the book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is absolutely outstanding. I think Ray just got through it himself as well. Let's see here. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this in a second. Share. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. So I think you guys can see my screen at this point. If somebody could let me know, can you see my screen? So I'm just gonna write the word yes in there. Can you guys see that PowerPoint? All right, sweet. Okay, cool. So let's see here. And then Ray, can you see what I just wrote on my PowerPoint? All right, and I wrote the number 1. All right, cool. Okay, cool. All right, so the time management technique that they talk about in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People sounds super simple, but man, like every time I go through this quick little process, it is very profound for me. So it's pretty simple. He puts it in basically these quadrants right here. So he goes through, and the x-axis, I believe, is urgent and not urgent. And then the y-axis is important and then not important. They might be switched, but basically that's the idea. Now, the goal here is basically to look at where you're spending your time. So if you can think about where you're spending your time, let's say yesterday or last week during the business week, where are you spending most of your time? Now, if we go through right here, like let's look at not important and not urgent. So this is just a waste of time right here. Not important and not urgent, right? Now, most people get stuck in this zone, which you would say, okay, well, why would anybody get stuck in that zone? It's actually really easy. When you have environmental circumstances, so let's just say your environment you're going to be getting your stimulus from two sources, either your premeditated goals or your environment. Now, what happens is, if I were to look at your task list, all of your task list, let's say 80 to 100%, should be coming from your goals, right? You should be getting your actions directly from your goals and going into your time management quadrants. However, what ends up happening is, because the environment can be so strong, people emailing you, people calling you, interrupting you, and so on, most people are getting all of their action items from the external environment. Doesn't mean that you should be getting zero from them, because especially if you work with people, or if you have a business, customer calls and says, okay, you got to handle this real quick, blah, 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 right? But what happens is, most people are receiving the exact opposite of their tasks, where it should be coming from. It should be coming from your goals, but it's coming from mostly environmental stimulus. Now, of course, the behind the scenes trick is creating an environment so that the majority of your goals are not triggered by environmental stimulus, but in fact triggered by your actual goals. So the majority of your action items should be coming from your goals, not your external environment. Now, if we look at the time management box, this is a waste of time right here, not urgent and not important. So this would be an example of a coworker or a client bringing to your table something that for them is an emergency, but really doesn't move the needle for you. Or just in general, just a lot of people like to freak out. So they might call you and say, oh my gosh, we got to get this report out, but it might be a useless report. Or your wife might bring to you, or your girlfriend might bring to you some sort of drama or something that doesn't have to be handled, but because they perceive it as an emergency, it is now your emergency. So my recommendation always for this box is, do your best to not get involved in it. And the way to do that is to start to develop a reputation for somebody who is not going to take those action items. I've told a lot of people that I do not never try to hand me a piece of paper, because I will not take it. Literally, and I try to make a joke out of it, but it's serious. Everybody in my office knows not to hand me a piece of paper, because when somebody hands you a piece of paper, before they even say anything, there's inevitably a 95% chance that there is an obligation attached to that. And let me just double check with you guys. Okay, cool. And Gunther, can you see the screen button? Let me know if you can see my PowerPoint screen. Okay, so the important point here is, you might be spending a lot of time in this box right here, in this wasted time area that's not important and not urgent. And that is usually going to be because other people are putting those tasks on you. Now, the preemptive way of solving this is telling everybody around you, especially those who work with you pretty often. And again, this could be friends, it could be family, it could be coworkers, it could be employees, it could be clients, etc. Develop a reputation for not accepting those tasks. And for me, the funny way that I do it is, I tell everybody they cannot send me emails and they cannot give me paper that has any obligation that we have not discussed and have not agreed on. So literally, if somebody tries to hand me a piece of paper, I put my hands behind my back and say, I cannot accept that until I know what you're going to ask of me. And they laugh, but they also get the point. So nobody in my office hands me a piece of paper, and nobody in my office sends me emails that are going to require me to do something that I have not agreed on completely and is not attached to our goals. So anyway, develop a reputation there. Now, this will take some time to sort of siphon through some of the relationships or the behavior of the relationships to you. So for instance, if your spouse or your girlfriend or whoever is used to giving you sort of make work activities that they just maybe don't want to do themselves, or a coworker doesn't want to do themselves, or just they don't have as much of a diligent process of looking at the tasks and how relevant they are towards your goals or the company's goals, you will have to train people around you. Now, so always try your best to stay out of this. And again, this will take some time to filter out the people who are creating these tasks for you. Now, the other thing that it drives me even more crazy is the not important, but the urgent. So somebody will bring to me a task that says, oh my God, this is crazy important. And then I ask them and say, okay, well, how does this relate to revenue? And that's always a really good mental model that I use, that you can also use in personal life, right? Like, ask somebody who's about to give you something, okay, how does this relate to revenue? How does this move the needle for us? And this happens in personal relationships all the time, like all the time. So where somebody says, oh, can you do this for me? Okay, how is this important? How does this relate to our personal revenue? How does this relate to the company's revenue? Or Mrs. Spouse, how does this relate to our vision of ourselves? Because what happens is humans are not only meaning-making machines, they're also task-making machines. And usually the tasks that they create are urgent for some reason. right? Oh my God, I need to get this done. Well, why? Well, first of all, do you even have to get it done? And if you have to get it done, why does it have to be so quickly? So this is the second killer as well, this urgent and not important box. Again, same thing, train people around you to not treat you like that or to not give you those types of tasks. So you want to stay out of this bucket as well. By the way, this might sound so obvious because you'd be like, well, why would I not do something? Why would I do something that's not important and not urgent? And the reality is, let's say even if nobody else is giving you a task, when you're working on your goals, a lot of the actions are tedious and they're not enjoyable and or they're difficult. So our brain will all of a sudden say, okay, well, let's say for Gibbons, right? He's got this project and he's starting this business and he needs to create this thing and put it out there into the world. Well, there's judgment attached to that thing. So his brain is most likely, and my brain too, or like for creating certain things, will want to find a way out. So all of a sudden I find myself organizing my desk when I should be putting together a proposal for a client, or like I'll refill the stapler because I don't want to like do the analysis on a client's portfolio, or I don't want to present them because my brain is naturally scared, right? That's a lot of our natural brain state. So all of a sudden you find yourself that you got the cleanest desk in the world, but then you get evicted from your office because you can't pay the bills because you've been avoiding the important and the urgent and not urgent stuff. Now, so these can be very sneaky, but by and large, try to stay away from this bottom half of this box, right? Now, the next area, probably and more effective, obviously, is sitting in the important and the urgent box. So the important and the urgent is something, let's say for me, I've got a client and they're coming in 2 days from now and they're expecting a proposal or they're expecting some sort of commentary on their portfolio. Well, the deadline is 2 days from now and I've got to get it done. So let's just say, this is a presentation, like a client presentation, right? Or a client meeting. Right, something like this, where it's important because it increases the revenue of the firm, and obviously creates the sustainability of the business. But it's urgent because there's a very close time deadline associated with it. Now, I happen to live, let's say, 60% of the time in this box, and I actually do it on purpose. Every single time I meet with a client, I schedule our next meeting, and it's usually, let's just say, if there's an action item, I schedule a meeting the following week to go through the action items. And that forces me, as opposed to saying, okay, we've got these action items today and I'll get them done, then I'll get back to you when I get them done, right? Or Mr. Client, and because we give a lot of clients a lot of action items, we give them action items as well. And we say, okay, just get back to us when they get done. Well, guess what? They almost never get done, even on my side as well. So I always want to put out some sort of future accountability. And for me, that's always meetings. I always say, like, if you want to move the needle with people, like, schedule meetings around it, because when you schedule it, right, you for sure at least will have to confront the accountability that comes from not doing it. That's worst case scenario. So I spend a lot of my time actually in this important and urgent box, and I do that deliberately. Now, the next thing is the not urgent and the important. So right here. And Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he recommends spending the majority of your time here. This is, building relationships. This is strategy. This is, let's say, building long-term assets, something like that, right? So long-term assets, blah, blah, blah. He says spend the most time here because this is where you're the least stressed, but you're building the biggest foundation. Now, I personally like both of these. And like I said, I spend about 60% of my time in the important and urgent category just because I react better to deadlines. I kind of like the competition of it. I like feeling a little bit of stress, not distress, but eustress. Eustress is the good stress. So I want to know that, okay, I've got a game tomorrow. I've got to perform tomorrow. And I spend 40% of my time over here. So I think this is going to be much more of a personality thing for anybody listening to this, and what you're comfortable with. But I would also probably not be surprised if most people perform best in the important and the urgent category. So kind of under tight deadlines. It does force you to get out a lot of work that's not perfect, which I think is better because it builds volume, like we talk about a lot here. But also, yes, if you can spend some more time in not urgent and important, that would probably also be great as well. But just be cognizant of how much you're managing that and try to never spend time down here. Now, the biggest thing whenever anybody comes up to me and says they want to talk about goals, actually, funny enough, at Matt's wedding, a lot of people came up to me and Matt and said like, oh yeah, we listened to Matt's podcast, we listened to Rhomas and blah, blah, blah. And we want to talk about goals and so on. And the number one kind of son of a bitch question I ask people when we have that sort of scenario is I say, okay, do you have your goals? Most people do not have their goals. And if they do, I say, okay, great. Tell me about yesterday. How much of your day yesterday, right, revolved around your goals? Or I'll even say, hey, tell me about your day yesterday. Like, tell me the best things you did yesterday. And they give me this list. I say, okay, great. Well, none of the things, or only one of the things that I heard you say actually related to the goals that you showed me earlier. And that's the biggest thing. And by the way, I have the same problem, right? So it's filtering your day, filtering your goals, and putting those on your task list as opposed to just random task listing, if that makes sense. So I'll kind of stop there. And let's see. Let me stop sharing. Okay, so that is a simple time management technique that I use pretty often. And the cool thing is you don't necessarily have to draw it out. You can sit there and ask yourself as you're going through it. I just saw the Ray's comment. They get the point. Wes is a psycho. So you can do this in a mental model box. So if you're going through and visualizing what you're doing for the day, or you're currently doing something, ask yourself real quick, okay, where does this land in the quadrants, right? Is it not urgent and is it unimportant, or is it urgent and important? Always make sure you're landing in the important category. Very, very important for you to land in the important category. Otherwise, it's useless. Right, I forget what they say. It's like rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, right? You know, you might be doing something that seems relatively productive, but at a macro level, it's pointless. And I think a lot of us men, we spend a lot of time there, including myself. So I have to constantly bring up these things to make sure that I'm on point with all of my tasks. Another thing that I started doing recently, actually, is not only having personal goals. I'll show you guys this. So not only having personal goals, this is my 2021 goals, but now I also have my business goals. Just because, in my opinion, if you take your career seriously enough, there's so many tasks that come along with your business or your career that I'm starting to feel like I just need to have a separate binder for it. So I don't know what you guys think about that. But now that I manage a team, so there's a group of people. It's just, I don't want my personal goals, to be, I don't know. It's just, it might even come down to like a page thing, right? Like there's kind of 20 pages in this and there's 15 pages in my personal goals. So just kind of getting too thick, but also I wanted to see my dashboard of where I'm at for the business as well, kind of on a separate binder. So anyway, what do you guys think? Does anybody have any comments around that time management technique, or have you used it, or using different ones that you feel are good? But I want to start teaching you guys more of the actual tools, and just a good reminder for myself, more of the tools that I use on a daily basis. Because I know when Matt and I chat, we kind of gloss over some things and don't go a little in depth. And I think going in depth on some of these tools and techniques is really important. So if anybody has any comments, let me know. And then Ray, I know you just finished, or I think you were finishing the 7 Habits book. What are your thoughts on the time management techniques in there? Do I use this technique predictively? Ray, what do you mean by that, predictively? Or just when things come to you? Oh, absolutely. Okay. So do I use this? So I would say probably one of the most important things I do during the week is either on a Saturday or Sunday, if I'm really on top of my game, Saturday or a Sunday. I will go through and I do a brain dump of everything that I'm thinking of, or anything that I have to do. And I keep all of this in Microsoft Excel. So if you can imagine, I have an Excel sheet. I've been doing this literally for probably like 10 years. So I make the columns to Excel very tiny. So if you don't know Excel, don't get caught up on all these details, but I make the columns of the cells very, very tiny. So you have like little kind of pixelated boxes almost. Oh yeah, and Francisco, you can definitely use this for personal home stuff. Absolutely. And the cool thing is you can just do it on a piece of paper, on a Post-it note or whatever, right? It doesn't have to be your entire time management system. But anyway, I have this Excel sheet, right? This is where I keep my personal notes. So if I ever meet with a client, I will keep my notes in this, and it's just a long running canvas, if you can imagine. So I make the columns very narrow. And then if you can imagine Excel, it's just a grid-like structure, right? So I turn the rectangles of Excel into small squares, like very, very small squares. You've probably seen something similar on like an engineer's notebook, how it's a bunch of like small squares over the entire page. Then I remove the grid lines. So I remove the grid lines, so it's just a big white blank canvas. And I do that because when I take notes, I like to kind of indent things. And if you know how to use Excel, then it's easy to indent when you just make them super small squares. Anyway, so I have my notes section, if you could imagine, and I write my personal notes. But then at the beginning of each morning, I have a section, and it's all of my personal tasks that are related to my goals, and I have different columns in there, if you can imagine. So imagine it's like this square, and I have like my to-dos for the day, and I have them ranked by priority order. And then in the next column, I have what I'm waiting on. In the next column, I have parking lot stuff. So the point is, you don't have to get caught up on those details, but the point is, I then have my task for the day, or have my task just in general. And then I move it up each week. So as I write my notes above it, so let's just say I did that today, which is Monday, I have my outline for the day. I have my actions and my most important projects in front of me. And then what I do is I actually take my most important actions, my top 3 to 5, and I write them on a Post-it and I put them on my desk. So that way, right, number one, it is finite real estate. Like the Post-it's only, this big, right? Super small Post-it. So I can't write 100 things on there. So I have to pick the most important things. Now I take that, 3 to 5 things, I put them on a Post-it, then I put it on my desk. The reason that I do that is because if you listen to or read the book, what is it called? Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. He's the top professor on persuasion. He wrote the book, what is it called? Influence. So that was his first book, and then his second book was Persuasion. And in Persuasion, he talks about how humans we're generally not action creatures, we are reaction creatures. So we react to our environment. So if you want to have a productive life, you have to start changing your environment to remind you to do things like Matt and I have talked about a lot. So I write my tasks on my Post-it because that's what stays constant throughout the day, right? Like on my computer, I don't want my tasks just to be there because I'm using a million different windows throughout the day. So I'm not focused on purely my task list. So I put that Post-it on the day, and that literally reminds me about my most important things for the day, probably 100 times throughout the day. Because if you imagine how many times you glance at your desk or you walk into your office and you see that Post on your desk, it's like, oh, I've got to get that done, got it. And I check those off as I go through the day. As simple as that sounds, that's what is effective for me. Now, so if you can imagine, I've got my tasks on my computer. Then from there, I've already kind of like when my tasks end up on my Excel sheet, they've already gone through that matrix that I just showed you guys, right? It's only the important and the urgent and the important and the not urgent that get there. That is my filter. So anything that gets to my Excel sheet, I have already preemptively and Ray, like you're saying, predictively, I've already put it through there. So I don't run my task management through that matrix, but I run my tasks through that matrix and then end up, right? Like they don't stay in that matrix. They run through that matrix and oftentimes just mentally, right? Run through that matrix and then get onto my sheet. I hope that makes sense. So anytime you are about to do something or anytime you're making your plan for the day, just a real quick, simple question. You can draw it on a piece of paper. Or you can put it on in some sort of software and run your tasks through that matrix, right? Is this urgent? Is this important? If it's not important, don't do it. And if you have an obligation where somebody's already asked you to do a not important thing, and here's the thing, not important for you. I think it's very important to understand. A lot of people might give you or give me important things for them. And this is where personal responsibility comes in and having to maybe have a very candid and frank discussion with somebody saying, I know that sounds important. Honestly, you don't want me to do it because I'm going to mess it up. And really what that means is like, that's not important to me, or that my skills don't match that. So don't take on important things that are important for other people that are not important for you. Now, of course, if they're important for the relationship, then you might want to consider it. But run all of your tasks through this matrix. Is this important? Is this urgent? And if not, you have to relieve yourself of the responsibility of doing it. Now, the honorable way to do that is to have a formal conversation. Hey, I may have told you I could do this. It no longer fits. I apologize. I can no longer do it. Or I would love to take that on because you're a great friend or you're a great coworker, but honestly, I will mess it up and I have to focus on my other priorities. Another thing, you will also probably get tasks from, let's say, a boss or a manager or whatever that land in some of these, not important and urgent category. And the reason is because your boss is a human. And I see this happen all the time. Happened all the time on Wall Street because everybody was so stressed out. So the partners would give us tasks that oftentimes were just a result of like some random meeting they had. And, the client asked them to do something and they didn't want to push back on the client. So then they absorbed this task from the client. And then by osmosis, they kind of handed it off to us. So anyway, you have to have the responsibility of then pushing back on your employer and saying, hey, Rick, I would love to get this done for you. I'm just a little confused. And if you already have a long laundry list of priority-based things that you have to do, then you have to go back to Rick and say, hey, right, like I can definitely do this for you, but I've got these other 5 things. Should I prioritize this higher than the thing that than the things that you've already given me? And that question is a phenomenal way that I have found to go back to your superior and say, hey, would love to do this. I'm not trying to duck out on work, but we already have these 10 things that we've agreed that I should do. Where in the priority list should I put that? And that's the key copywriting. Where in the priority list should I put this? And you have to remind them of what you are already tasked with. Because I have this problem, right? Like when I give tasks to employees, I'm not thinking about what they are doing. I'm not thinking about the last 10 projects I gave them because on a day-to-day basis, I'm not sure exactly the micro status of each of those projects. It is their responsibility to push back on me and say, hey, I'm really deep in this other project that you gave me last week and we're almost at the finish line. Well, should I prioritize this above it? Because I've trained them as well to say that to me, right? And I put that on their personal responsibility. So if you are in a similar situation where you're receiving tasks from somebody, so particularly somebody who's higher than you, remind them, remind them of what you are working on and particularly what is important to them because of what you have discussed in the past. I hope that makes sense. So not only responsibility to not take on work activities that are not important and not urgent for you, but then also as you're receiving work from the hierarchy, like somebody above you, right? How are you reminding them of the important things that you were doing? Because ultimately this comes down to, if you're working for somebody, when it comes time for bonus time, right? Then you will be held accountable at a macro level of how much you've gotten done. So I hope that makes sense. If you're working for somebody, it's so important for you to focus on the macro projects, the projects that move the needle the most, because that is what is going to get you promoted. Because if you got the important shit done, that 6 months from now are going to be the recognizable things, not the other micro things that your boss thought was important, but just wasn't paying attention to the macro picture. That North Star goal talk applies just as much to business as it does to your personal life. So let's see. Gunther saying, my boss has been out on FMLA the last 5 months. Each time I get a request for a new project, I let them know. Exactly. He says I let them know what I'm working on, aka I'll get to it in 2 weeks, which is ASAP in my world right now. Yep, Gunther, you are spot on. And Gunther, I'm sure you could relate. Like, you're probably receiving projects of people who are not putting things through certain filters, and they might just be landing at your desk because of your position or whatever it is, because maybe you're the only guy who can do it. But pushing back on them, which is exactly what you're doing, and letting them know your work on is exactly the thing you should be doing. It's exactly your responsibility too. These are the things that will get all of us promoted, or all of us raises, or all of us more clients, etc. Okay, so Saad is saying, been having a dilemma at work. Found out people doing the same job are making 3x, but I feel like where I'm at right now, I can learn a lot more. Wondering what serves me better now, money or learning the freedom this job provides. Saad, are you able to come on? I'm not sure if you're at work right now, but if you're able to come on, let me know. All right, let's see. Let's bring you up, brother. And I'm always fucking bad at this. I don't know how to do this. Guys, give me a second. I'm going to try to bring you up here. Okay, Saad, where you at, brother? Yeah, Saad, for some reason it's showing that you are not live. So you might have to. Oh, here we go. No, I got you. Cool. All right, Saad, I just sent you out a request, bro.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, dude?
Not much.
All right.
How was your
So
weekend?
good, man. We had Matt's wedding. It was fucking awesome.
Oh, yeah, right on.
Oh yeah,
Right on.
danced my face off. I think I danced for I think it was 3 hours straight. My girlfriend couldn't even handle it.
That's awesome.
Oh hell yeah. So what's going on? If you can explain to the guys what
Yeah.
you just put in the comments.
So like for my program, you basically have to take courses, and I was talking to one of the girl in the courses, and like it's everyone around Canada, so it's not like it's like a regionalized or anything. It's not like the school is in BC, so it's everyone in Canada. And she was telling me in the Toronto area where I came from, people are making up to 3 times what I'm making, and that was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But she said she had to leave that high paying position because they were kind of just, you have like two different types of reports, residential and commercial. And if you want more money, like commercial, but these ones are kind of like residential farms where they do high volume and so they make a lot of money. But where I'm at right now, it's like my boss has been in the industry 40 years. He allows me a lot of freedom to make mistakes and stuff. And it's like these people have to leave these jobs to get commercial jobs, so they can you have to do a progress report for the institute who accredits us, and then they need up an up in difficulty for every report you submit.
Yeah.
So they have to leave to get that like increase of difficulty. So I'm here thinking yeah, I'm learning more here and I have more freedom to make mistakes, and I don't have to leave my comfort zone, but at the same time I'm losing out on a lot of money. So it's just kind of been pulling at me a little bit. Like I know the earning potential is still there. It's just it feels like I'm at a little bit of a crossroads.
Mind if I make a comment on it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And let me ask you this. How much of you is scared of if you then go and leave and accept a job that's 3x the pay? Is there any part of you, and please be transparent, that is scared that then you would have 3x the workload or 3x the expectation?
That's the thing. It's like I know I would be sacrificing my sanity probably. Like I don't know how these guys do it. It's like an insane workload, and it feels like they're just kind of being put into farms, like report farms, and they're just kind of mindlessly filling reports. So I feel like it would be kind of detrimental, but it's a lot of money. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let me comment on this. First of all, if you were my brother, here's what I would tell you, or here's what I would do. Here's what I tell myself. If you are out, first of all, the career for a man, in my opinion, is the nucleus of his being. Really, the family is, but the career helps provide for the family, right?
yeah.
That is the key differentiator for a man, in my opinion. So since that is the case, that's the first filter. That means you got to take it really fucking seriously. And if you don't, then get the hell off the team. Now, I'm not saying that to you, right? But that's for other men who are not going to take their families very seriously, who are not going to take their goals very seriously. So you got to take your career very seriously. Now, since that's the case, you don't want a job, you want a career. And if you want to get even higher than that, you don't even want a career, you want a mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it takes some time early in your career. You have to acquire the skills. Now, as we talked about in the past, skill acquisition is largely a function of volume, right? So it's studying the things, but then doing the things at scale very often, right? Very frequently for a very long period of time. And you only have so long of a runway, right? If you don't mind me asking, how old are you, bud?
23.
Okay, so you're 23, right? You will be 30 before you fucking know it. I promise you. Any of the guys above 30 will tell you right now, right? I'm sure you could use the same logic, right? I'm sure when you were 18, you couldn't imagine, what it would be like to be 23.
Yeah.
So So since that's the case, you have a very small runway, because eventually, if you want to have a family, which from our conversations, it seems like you do eventually, right?
Yeah.
Well, like, you need to have a certain amount of resources when you do that. And I don't give a shit who tells you otherwise. Or like a bunch of people told me like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, nobody's perfectly ready. It's like, yeah, but here's what happens. Men who start families without resources have a hell of a time digging their way out of that.
Yeah.
If ever, it's very difficult. And it doesn't mean it's impossible, but you want to stack the cards, stack the deck in your favor, right? So with that being said, I'm getting the vibe, and I've been there before, right? Where it's like, maybe not making that jump because you're scared of the accountability, or you're scared that you're going to fuck up, or you're scared that they're going to like burn you out, whatever that is. And I can appreciate that. Like, Wall Street was entirely that, right? Literally the conversations on Wall Street where like, we compensate you because you will have a heart attack. Like, we've taken the present value calculations of your future health problems, right? And that's why we're paying you so much. But dude, I could tell you that, yes, it was hard as hell. Yes, there was an extreme amount of accountability. But when I went through that baptism by fire, then you could go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't experience stress ever now with my career, basically, right? Because Wall Street was so unbelievably, first of all, it was fun. There was an incredible amount of stress, but it was worth it, dude. Like, it was 100% worth it. Yeah. So if I were to say to you, if it's literally 3x the pay, that's enormous.
Yeah. Right.
Like, and also I would be hesitant to assume that you're going to be bad at it, or that they're going to burn you out, or whatever, right? Like if you want to play this game for keeps, and you want to play this game to be really, really fucking phenomenal at what you do, and you want to expedite that time, you have to do that through volume.
Yeah.
And you can't personally do that yourself. Like, you have to have a company give you that volume, right?
Yeah.
I assume, like, for your genre of work.
Yep.
So that's what I would say. Two things I would do. Number one, I'd have a super candid conversation with your boss. 100%.
Oh yeah, we talk about this stuff all the time.
Oh, and what does he say? So have you told him, say, hey, I just got word on the street that, compensation is 3x of what I'm making here. What would you do? Have you had that conversation with him?
Yeah, he's saying like he's kind of phasing out right now. So he's like kind of looking more towards retirement. So I kind of want to like get as much knowledge as I can from him. But he wants to grow the business too. It's just like, it seems like it's kind of like unfathomable what people are doing right now. There's like a big real estate boom in Canada. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if I want to do exactly appraisal, like this report filling for as long, but like just I want to be in the industry of real estate. I really like it.
Yep.
And so I'm like considering like, okay, yeah, I could do that, just hammer out reports, blah, blah, blah. Or I could sit here and like kind of learn the small nuances of the industry, and like, cause I want to work for a city eventually, Okay. So I want to, so it's either just make money, and just learn appraisals really well, or kind of learn the nuances from someone who's been in the industry for like 40 years. And he knows people as well, so I can make connections that way. But yeah.
Well, let me say this. So in terms of real estate, when you say you want to be involved in real estate, what does that mean for the future? Like, if you had a magic wand, what exactly would be that position?
Yeah. Today? Oh, there's a position I've been looking at. It's a senior real estate coordinator for the city where I'm from, and it's essentially like, you negotiate property taxes, you like look over development areas and stuff. You're basically the city's kind of like a real estate eye, because they need to like approve places where they develop and stuff. And some people come in and they say their property tax is too high. They want to negotiate that down. So you figure out where your property taxes are and like how much they should be worth. And I kind of like that stuff. I don't know.
Got it. Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you know how to actually get there? And before you answer, imagine I'm looking at a score on your head. Right?
Yeah.
How qualified are you to answer that question? And since you don't do it, right, that automatically knocks some points down, right? Which is good, right? Like you're not there yet. So you don't know exactly how to get there because you haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So the next best thing to not doing it is to actually talk to a few people who are currently in that role and ask how they got there. Have you done that yet?
No, No.
Okay. Okay. So then so that would be your first action, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's that Conor McGregor quote that I forget who he beat at one point in the prime of his career, and he beat somebody and they interviewed him and he said, "How'd you win?" He said precision over power.
Yeah, Jose
right?
Aldo.
Oh, nice. There you go. You want to make your actions so unbelievably precise. And in the absence of actually having done it, you have to talk to people who have done it. And notice I said plural there. You cannot just talk to one person, right? It has to talk to several. What is it? What's the position called?
It's like senior real estate advisor or something.
Okay,
like
cool.
that.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would look out to those people. And I would do that like today or this week.
Like on LinkedIn?
And yeah, just find out, so you could probably even look on LinkedIn, or you could look at the company's websites, or you said it's for the city, right? Like
it's a city, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know exactly that terrain, but I can tell you for sure you can find these people, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Google will allow you to find these people, or LinkedIn, or whoever, right? Find those people, right? Then from there, literally just ask them if you can pick their brain. Script out an email, send them an email saying, "Hey, my name's such and such, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just want to pick your brain because I do look up to you and your position. I just want to know how you got there." Okay. You'll get a couple emails back, and then I would also call them, right? If you can get their numbers, which you will be able to get their numbers, right? Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, you have very precise action. You will notice a pattern. If you talk to 1 to 3 of them, you now have a very good guess of what it takes to get there. You take that information, you combine it with the information of making 3x of whatever that is, because they might say, "Oh yeah, you could do that job, get paid 3x the cost," and there's very much a bridge there. Because dude, I got to tell you, right? Like money is like water and oxygen.
I know, yeah.
Right, like that, like this other stuff that you told me, like, oh, this guy will teach me the nuances of the business. Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Totally true. But are there other ways you can learn nuances of the business?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And you said he can connect me with relationships. Yeah, guess what? That's also true in a lot of other ways. The ways that I'm telling you right now, right? Precision beats power. You can reach out directly to the type of people that you want to be and develop relationships with them. And I almost guarantee, I don't know your boss, but I almost guarantee he does not have the relationships with those people. I'm assuming, right? Like, So you'd be amazed how quickly you can build and even this, you'd be amazed how quickly you can very precisely build a relationship with somebody, because building a professional relationship does not have to be a friendship. In fact, I don't even like that. Right? There's a lot of people in my industry who go and like, they try to be friends with people to eventually have a professional relationship. So they're like kind of like professional friends, which is super weird. Yeah. Right? Like they'll go to their birthday parties. It's like, you don't want to go to the fucking birthday party. It's like, you want to have a professional relationship. And if it develops into a friendship, great. But like you can, if you take action, you can condense that amount of time into like literally a couple weeks. Right? Does that make sense? Yep. And then it's like, oh, I'm talking to Saad because I'm trying to help him because I met him on LinkedIn and we had a couple good conversations. I'll hook him up. So you didn't have to like spend 5 years of getting to know them and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's what I would do, but it'd be very hard to talk me out of not considering making 3 times the amount of income, especially since our conversation a few weeks ago was like, I want to buy a house. How do I save up? Right.
Yeah.
And it's no offense to your current boss, right? He just might not be able to pay you that much. And so it's not personal, right? It's just a matter of resources.
And it's just a location too. Like, they just don't have the volume here.
Yeah, exactly. So. Volume, dude. If you want to master your craft, you need to have volume, period.
Yeah.
So, and that might mean you got to make some big boy decisions. Like it sounds like definitely. You might have to move, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you're okay with that, then fucking move. I moved across the country, literally coast to coast for an opportunity. And I'm not saying that to pound my chest, but I'm saying like, as a man, you have to do what you have to fucking do if you take your goal seriously.
Yeah. I moved here, so, it's no big deal to move back. It just, I'll probably finish out my, like, just like the up of difficulty and finish, like, submit my 3rd report and get that over with. And then maybe just, like, head back a little early.
Yeah. When can we nudge on you a little bit to ask you about the progress on this?
I like to be here for 1 year, February maybe.
Okay, Ray says Friday. You say February. Ray says Friday. For some sort of progress.
For contacting people who are in that position today, like that Friday. Yeah. I want to be able to at least contact 3 people who are in the position I want to be in. So
okay, I'll give you a little bit of an easier task. Pick the lowest hanging fruit. It would be awesome if you had those conversations by Friday. If you're my brother, I'd say please, please, please do that. I know that can be a little bit of stressful for some people, right? Because they're reaching out to people that don't know, blah, blah, blah. But definitely at least send them emails.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd really like to see you do is have a conversation with your boss. Now, this might be stressful, right? I don't know the relationship that you have, but so much better to be transparent. And I guarantee you, right? Like there's a 99% chance that you will walk out of that room with way more clarity and feel better.
Yeah.
And the way you pose the question is like, hey, there's just something came up. I had a friend of mine tell me that, he or she was making 3 times as much and a bunch of people making 3 times as much in the same position. And rather than keeping it in my head and playing all these games in my head and thinking about it or being distracted, I just wanted to talk to you because I trust you. You're a mentor of mine, like that sort of thing. If all of that's true, right?
Yeah.
And then he'll have a conversation with you.
Yeah. Another thing I want to do is confirm that people are actually making that much. Because it could just be... Sorry?
So without a doubt, that's why you talk to him, because he might say, "Oh, that's bullshit." Like she's selling you a bag of goods,
Yeah. So maybe try and reach out to more people in the industry or people who are hiring. Just this guy I used to work with, he said he would just email people just randomly just to see like what's up with their business, So I might just start reaching out a little bit more.
Yeah, and you could Google it. I mean, I'm sure you could go and Google that particular occupation in and around your geographical location and get a relatively good benchmark of what people are making.
Yeah.
Ray saying talk to the person who is running your online course. It's a good idea too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, please, brother. I'd love to hear back from you on Friday. And Gunther is saying Glassdoor usually has those metrics. Yeah, I definitely know that's true for the US. I assume it's similar for Canada.
Okay.
But yeah, get all the information you can so that way you can make an intelligent decision. But I could tell you, if all of it's true, I think you have a really heavy decision to make, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
3x the income as a man, right? That's a lot of resources for your future family, bud.
Yeah. I have season tickets to the hockey team here, so maybe wait out the season.
Yeah, so let me tell you, that should not be fucking part of your decision making.
I know. I know.
All right, brother.
$25 a ticket. Fucking definitely not.
Yep. And yes, Ray says that gets me aroused. 100% gets me aroused talking about increasing your income. All right, dude, please step back on Friday. We'll get some updates from you. All right, dudes, hope that was helpful today. Saad, as always, brother, thank you for coming on. You guys have an awesome fucking week, and we'll see you on Friday.
Take care.